Right. So we've got a lot to get through today, talking about this Pete Hegseth confirmation hearing for Secretary of Defense. Seems like everyone and their mother has an opinion on this whole thing.
Yeah, it's definitely been making the rounds.
Yeah. And I mean, we've got articles, we've got opinion pieces, we've even got some of the hearing transcripts themselves.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, which is why we're doing a deep dive to try to make sense of all of this, for our listeners, so they don't have to wade through all of this stuff.
Right. And I mean, from what I've seen, it's not just your typical political back and forth. You've got serious allegations, controversial statements, a lot of questions about if this guy is even the right person for the job.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe we should start by, who is this guy? Pete Hegseth.
Right.
For anyone who's been living under a rock, what's his deal? So we know he's a Princeton grad, did some time in the Army National Guard, even got a Bronze Star.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes a Fox News host.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that background's really key to understanding what's happening here.
Okay.
So you've got the military service, you've got the time on Fox News. That gives him a platform to connect with, a certain segment of the population.
Okay, so you're saying he's got a base.
He's got a base, for sure. People who really respond to this traditional warrior ethos, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's powerful, especially when we're talking about national security and all that.
Right. But, okay, so we've got the warrior ethos image, right?
Right.
But then you look at his actual experience and it's wait a minute.
Exactly.
He's supposed to maybe lead the entire U.S. military, a huge global organization.
Huge, yeah.
And a lot of his critics are hold up. He doesn't have the experience for this.
Yeah. No high-level command experience. He hasn't, commanded large-scale military operations.
Right.
And even his civilian leadership experience.
Pretty limited.
Yeah, it's limited. So it's this gap between the image and the actual experience.
Right.
And that's really at the heart of a lot of these concerns.
Yeah. I mean, imagine, I don't know, it's like being CEO of a massive company.
Totally.
You need to have the experience.
Exactly. You need a track record. Have you led? Have you managed before?
And that's what makes this whole thing so interesting, because when you look into his past roles, his involvement with these veterans organizations.
Oh, right.
There are allegations of financial mismanagement.
Yeah, and that raises some huge red flags.
Absolutely.
Because it's okay, if you can't manage finances in these organizations.
What are you going to do to the Pentagon budget?
Exactly. And it directly challenges this narrative he's trying to build around himself.
Of being a leader.
Of being a competent leader, the guy who's going to come in and shake things up at the Pentagon,
The change agent.
The change agent, exactly.
Yeah.
But then you've got these allegations and it's uh-oh.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that this is the Secretary of Defense we're talking about, right?
Sure.
This isn't just, some minor cabinet position.
Right.
They're in charge of, military operations, but they also advise the president on, all national security matters.
Right. They're essentially the president's right hand when it comes to the military, strategic planning, budgeting, troop deployments, all of it.
High-stakes stuff.
High-stakes stuff.
And that's why this confirmation process is so crucial. It's not just a rubber stamp.
Right.
The senators are supposed to be vetting this guy, asking the tough questions.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental part of our system, checks and balances. The Senate has a duty to really dig into the nominees' qualifications, experience, judgment, make sure they're up to the task.
And, I mean, from what we've seen in these sources, this hearing has been anything but smooth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, some senators from both sides of the aisle have some serious concern.
It goes way beyond just a lack of experience, right?
Right.
This is a storm of allegations.
Right.
We're talking sexual assault, excessive drinking, financial mismanagement.
And those are serious allegations. Even if they're not proven in court, they raise questions about his character, his judgment.
And the way he's responding to these allegations?
Ooh, not good.
It's like adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, exactly. It's he's trying to dismiss them as a smear campaign, avoiding specifics.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to sweep it all under the rug.
Yeah, and that might work sometimes, but not in a confirmation hearing.
Fair.
The senators are looking for transparency. They want accountability. And his responses haven't been convincing.
So we've got this picture emerging.
Mm-hmm.
Charismatic figure, compelling narrative, but maybe lacking the experience for the job.
Right.
And on top of that, you've got these serious allegations.
That he's not addressing.
Not addressing. So this confirmation battle, it's getting pretty heated.
Yeah, the stakes are high. Politically, this has become a lightning rod.
Yeah.
It's a clash of ideologies, a battle for the future of the military, And it's really a test. Do traditional qualifications even matter anymore in the age of Trump? It's a big question.
It is a big question.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the big picture stuff, but let's actually dive into those allegations.
Yeah, let's get into the weeds a little bit.
Because these aren't just, rumors.
Right.
We're talking serious accusations.
Yeah, and they could really derail his chances of becoming Secretary of Defense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. Sexual assault, drinking, financial mismanagement.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And they come from different times in his career.
Right.
It makes you wonder about his judgment, Is this the guy we want in charge of the military?
So let's start with the sexual assault allegation. This is obviously a very serious issue.
Extremely serious.
And it's gotten a lot of attention, for good reason.
Yeah, we need to be careful here. It's important to separate what we know from what we don't know.
Right.
So from the sources, it looks like a woman accused him of assaulting her back in 2017 at some Republican women's event.
Okay.
But Hegseth, he denies it completely, says it was consensual.
And as far as we know, it never went to court.
Right, it was settled out of court, confidential settlement, Hegseth paid up.
But a settlement, it doesn't necessarily mean he's guilty.
Right. No, not at all. Settlements happen all the time. They can be a way to avoid a long legal battle, protect both sides.
Right.
But, and this is a big but,
Yeah.
when it comes to public opinion and especially confirmation hearings,
Optics matter.
optics matter. A confidential settlement raises questions. People are going to wonder what really happened.
Especially since this whole thing came out during the vetting process for his nomination.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Some senators are even saying that a deeper FBI background check could have turned up more information.
So you're saying they didn't do their due diligence?
Well, it's tough to say. The scope of those background checks, it can be a big point of contention.
Yeah, I bet.
Some people want a super thorough investigation. Others think the standard process is enough.
It's a tricky balance.
It is.
So, okay, we've got this allegation, very sensitive, very complex. How did Hegseth even address this during the hearing?
So when they asked him about it, he denied it, of course.
Okay.
But he wouldn't get into the details of the case or the settlement.
Because it was confidential.
Right. He said he couldn't talk about it, which legally I get it. But from the senator's point of view, they want transparency.
Yeah, I can see why they'd be frustrated.
Of course. This is a serious allegation.
Right.
And he wants to be Secretary of Defense. You need to be able to explain yourself, be accountable.
So it raises questions. Is he really willing to be transparent? Can we trust him?
Big questions.
Okay.
And it gets at this really tough challenge for nominees who are facing these kinds of accusations.
Yeah, on the one hand, you have a right to privacy.
Absolutely.
Due process, all that.
Right. But on the other hand, the public, the senators, they need to know who this guy is.
Because he could be leading the military.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's this tough balancing act.
Okay, so let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
The allegations about excessive drinking.
Right.
Maybe not as serious as sexual assault, but it still makes you think,
Right. It makes you wonder about his judgment, his self-control.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's not just one isolated incident.
No.
We're hearing reports from different parts of his career, veterans organizations, even his time at Fox News.
So it's a pattern.
It's a pattern, yeah. And that's concerning because this is a guy who could be making life or death decisions.
Exactly. He could have access to nuclear codes.
And if you're drinking all the time,
it raises questions. Can he handle the pressure? Can we trust him with that kind of responsibility?
Right.
Yeah.
So how did he deal with this during the hearing? Did he just deny it?
He didn't deny it.
Okay.
He said, I'm not a perfect person, which, let's be honest, everyone says that.
Classic non-denial denial.
Totally. But then he did something interesting.
Okay, what do you do?
He made a vow. Said if he's confirmed, he'll abstain from alcohol completely.
Whoa, that's a big promise.
It is. And it definitely got people talking.
So did the senators buy it?
Who knows? Some might see it as a genuine commitment to change. Others might think it's a calculated move.
Just to get through the hearing.
Exactly. And here's the thing. There's another layer to this.
Oh.
They asked him, okay, what if you break your vow? Will you resign?
Yeah.
He wouldn't commit to resigning.
So it's is he really serious about this?
Right. It kind of undermines his whole pledge,
Makes it seem less sincere.
Exactly. He doesn't really grasp the seriousness of the situation.
Okay, so we've got the sexual assault, we've got the drinking. Now, what about the financial mismanagement?
Right. Those allegations mostly come from his time with those veterans organizations.
Maybe not as flashy as the other stuff, but still important.
Oh, yeah, it gets at his competence. Can he manage a big organization? Can he be trusted with money? That's the Department of Defense. It's a huge budget.
Right, we're talking taxpayer dollars here.
Exactly. And the details are kind of murky, but it sounds like there are accusations of misused funds.
Okay.
Bad accounting practices, just a lack of oversight overall.
And again, these are just allegations.
Right. He hasn't been found guilty of anything in court. But still, it adds another layer of scrutiny.
Yeah. So what did he say about this?
Some approaches before basically dismissed it, said it was politically motivated, part of the smear campaign.
So no real defense.
Not really. No detailed rebuttals, no evidence to counter the claims.
So it's kind of a pattern, right?
Yeah, you could say that. Serious accusations, vague denials.
Blame it on politics.
Exactly. And some senators, especially the ones who were already skeptical, they weren't buying it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, this is a job interview.
That's what it is, a very public job interview. And the senators, they're trying to figure out, can we trust this guy?
Does he have the character, the judgment to be Secretary of Defense?
Exactly. And so far, his responses haven't been very convincing.
So we've talked about all these allegations swirling around Hegseth, but let's actually talk about his vision for the military. Like, what does he actually want to do if he gets this job?
Yeah, good point. I mean, the Secretary of Defense isn't just some administrator. They set the whole tone, the direction for the military. And Hegseth has been pretty vocal about the changes he wants.
Okay, so like what? What kind of changes?
Well, he keeps talking about restoring a warrior ethos to the Pentagon.
The warrior ethos?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds good.
Sure.
Who doesn't want a strong military?
Right, a decisive military. But what does that actually mean, like in real life?
Right. Is it just like a catchy phrase, or does it have actual implications?
Well, that's where it gets tricky. He seems to be saying that the military has become, too bureaucratic. Too focused on social issues.
Okay.
Not focused enough on, fighting wars and winning wars.
So, the military's gone soft.
Kind of, yeah. He wants to go back to basics, back to this hard-edged approach.
But, I mean, the world's changed a lot.
It has.
You can't just fight wars like it's the Cold War anymore.
Exactly. Warfare has evolved. You've got terrorism, cyber warfare, pandemics even.
Right.
And the military has to be able to adapt.
So you're saying this whole warrior ethos thing, it could actually backfire?
It could. If you're too focused on combat, you might miss other important stuff.
Like what?
Like diplomacy, intelligence gathering, disaster relief even.
Right.
The military has to be able to do it all these days.
And Hegseth has also been really critical of what he calls woke generals.
Ah, yes, that's another big one.
Like, he's saying the military should be about meritocracy, not diversity and inclusion.
Right. He thinks all this focus on social issues is a distraction.
And this isn't just like an offhand comment, right? He said that diversity initiatives actually divide troops. And that women shouldn't be in combat roles.
Right. And those statements have caused a lot of controversy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
A lot of people, including current and former military leaders, they disagree with him.
They're saying diversity makes the military stronger.
Right. And that excluding women from combat just doesn't make sense.
So for our listener, what does this all mean? If he gets confirmed, could he actually, roll back diversity initiatives?
It's possible.
And could this focus on a warrior ethos lead to a more aggressive, U.S. military?
I mean, those are the questions the senators were asking.
Yeah.
And there aren't any easy answers. Hegseth says he gets it, He says he understands the importance of diversity, that he'll follow the chain of command. But his past statements, his whole rhetoric, it paints a different picture.
It's a lot to think about. I mean, there are arguments on both sides. But it's clear that if he's confirmed, things are going to change at the Pentagon.
Big time. And we don't really know what those changes will be.
Right. So what's the takeaway for our listeners?
Well, we've given you the information. Now it's up to you to decide what you think about all this.
Yeah. Read those sources.
Think critically.
What does Hegseth's potential leadership mean for the military?
For the U.S.'s role in the world. These are big questions, and they affect all of us.
Absolutely. And that's what this deep dive is all about, getting you the information you need to be an informed citizen.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us as we dug into Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing.
Thanks for having me.